Hello students, how are you? Welcome to the class. What's the topic today? It is friction. Let's quickly jump on to the definition of the friction. It says friction is the force resisting the relative motion of solid surface, fluid layers and material elements sliding against each other. What do you understand by that? In a simple way, if you try to slide your book on the surface of the table, you will feel something is tucking. Some force is opposing to your force. That thing is friction. Friction is a vector quantity as it is a force. Now, students, you must want to know what is the reason of the friction. Well, friction actually happens because of the roughness of the surface. We will see it later. Now, factors affecting friction. Friction is affected by many factors. What are they? They are first the nature of the surface on which the object is moving. There can be three types of surface: rough surface, smooth surface, and liquid surface. Rough surface increases friction. Smooth surface decreases friction and liquid surface also decreases friction. Try to roll a pencil battery on top of the table. Next, adding a cloth on the top of the table and spreading some sand on the top of the table. Find out in which condition the pencil battery rolls further. The next factor is the weight of the object or the amount of force on the surface by the object. It is quite simple. Try to pull a chair and next your almirah. In which case do you find more difficult to pull? Of course, in case of almirah, because it is much more heavier than the chair. Next thing is interesting. Friction is a necessary evil. How it is possible? A thing which is necessary as well as evil? Let's see. Cause of calling friction an evil. Friction causes wear and tear in the material. It increases the maintaining cost of machine and other materials also. Simply, how? Because the moving part of any machine moves over one another surface and they get decayed day by day. That is why. Next is friction can cause forest fire. How? Simple. The branches of the big trees rubbed against each other day by day with the blowing wind and generates heat by the friction force and get the fire. Next is friction oppose motion. Just we have got the example that if you try to pull or push something, something stucks or something oppose your motion, that is friction. And the last is friction produces noise. You have already heard the cracking sound of old doors, that cracking annoying sound made by friction. Now, what are the necessity of the friction in our daily life? First, friction help us to walk. Without friction, we will not able to walk. Next, we can write on the board on the paper due to friction. Next, moving vehicle stops by the friction. How? Simply when you apply brake, it rubs against the ring of the wheel and it generates friction and the wheel stops. Next, no object can stay in its fixed position like the furniture of your room, even in your building. Without friction, it cannot stay in a fixed place. And screw, nails, etc. While you hang any picture in your room, you use screws, nails, and it fixes your picture on the wall. That screw, that picture, everything fixed in its place due to friction. Now, increasing and decreasing friction. In our daily life, we need to control friction. Yes, we need to control it. Like sometimes we increase friction and sometimes we need to decrease friction as per the performance or the work required. Let's see how we'll do it. Increasing friction. Friction can be increased simply by making the surface rough. Yes, rough surface produce more friction. As an example, you can see all the vehicle's tire from your bicycle to the heavy loaded trucks. They all have grooves in it. Those particular grooves increases friction so that the vehicle do not get slide over the road. Next, brakes. We have already learned about brakes. There we need to increase friction so that the vehicle stops when we desire. Next, sprinter, footballer, cricketer, have you seen their shoes? Their shoes have extra grooves or spikes. What do we call spikes? Yes, those are for increasing friction so that they can make themselves steady on the ground while running or standing, etc. Next, decreasing friction. Yes, we also need to decrease friction. In the first example, we have learned that machinery parts get damaged due to friction. To prevent those damage, we need to reduce friction between those surfaces. We use lubricants to reduce friction and to keep the machines safe. Now to reduce noise, remember the cracking noise of the old doors? Just if you put a drop or two oils on the hinges, that noise will be reduced. Next, playing carom, obviously we use powder, right? Yes, that powder is used on the carom board to reduce friction so that the striker can move freely. Next, skiing from the top of the mountain, you need to reduce friction, and oiling the wheel of a vehicle to move faster, obviously, that is also a machinery part. Now, what is a lubricant? It is a fluid substance for lessening the friction like oil, grease, etc. Now, types of friction. We have come to the end of this chapter. Now we will learn types of friction. There are few types of frictions. Static friction. Remember, our furnitures do not move here and there in our room. Yes, they are maintaining a static friction. If you try to move any furniture, you will need to produce extra forces while moving any moving object. Already moving object need lesser force than a static one. Next is rolling friction. When you will roll any body over the surface of another body, it faces a resistance, that is rolling friction. Sliding friction is also the same. When you are sliding any body over the surface of another body, it will face a resistance, and that is sliding friction. Now, these are the types of friction in our daily lives. One more friction is there that we'll call fluid friction. If you wave your hand in the wind, or if you wave your hand inside any water filled bucket, you will feel a little resistance offering on your hand. That little resistance offering by the fluid on your hand is the fluid friction. The force that the fluid exert on your hand is called the drag. Now, who faces this fluid friction? Actually, faster moving vehicles like rockets, aeroplanes, or the MotoGP cars or bikes faces this fluid friction. Okay, students, now it's time to go through your textbook. Go through all the parts of your textbook and learn properly. There are also some fun activities to demonstrate the friction properly. As you can see here, now in this area in your book, they have explained the effect of changing surface. There you can see why friction happens because of the rough surface. As I told you in that picture, the surface of book and table are drawn in figure 12.5. Next, moving on to, we can see that friction is a necessary evil. They have explained that in your book, why we need friction and why we do not need friction, and what is the usage of friction. See, there is a picture of wear and tear in your shoes. There is a use of friction using matches. Now increasing and decreasing friction, you can see the grooves in the tire and the shoes. There is a use of lubricant. Here they have explained the rolling friction, sliding friction, fluid friction, etc. You can see the picture of ball bearing also. It has a sharp and smooth surface. Now go through this part of your book very carefully for briefing of the chapter. Okay, see you in next class. Bye bye.